My name is Matt McGee. I'm the executive news editor for Search Engine Land, and we are going to be talking about SEO myths and mistakes, etc., etc. We have a great panel. We did this at SMX East a few months ago and was a big success, so much so that we decided to bring it back for the West Coast crowd as well. I think I have some notes that I'm supposed to read first. If you are tweeting, remember the hashtag is SMX. This session's hashtag is 3A1. And actually, if you have any myths or things that you would like the panel to talk about related to SEO, you can also send a tweet with the hashtag SEO myths, and I will try my best to keep an eye on that and forward those to the panel as well. And then also there's the, there you go, the searchmarketingexpo.com/ask, which you can use to submit a question / myth, whatever that you might have for the panel. Michelle Robbins is at the back table. Hi, Michelle. And if you don't have laptop access or can't get online for whatever reason, then just bring a question or myth to Michelle, and we'll put it in the system that way. So we're going to do this a little differently than we normally do. We're not having formal presentations. We have one slide deck, which you can go ahead and pull up on the screen. And the slide deck, I'll just kind of lead the slide deck. Each slide has a SEO myth on it, and then the panel will, as quickly as possible, because remember, we only have 1 hour. So if you're going to fight, do it quickly. If you need to reach around and punch somebody, go ahead and do it. And so I'll just kind of lead the way through a single PowerPoint that way. So let's get started. I asked all 4 folks to send me a nice slide to introduce themselves. Greg, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Greg Bozer. I work for Blue Glass Interactive and do SEO strategy for the company, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, that was good and quick.
Quick and easy.
Thank you. Stefan?
I'm the founder of an SEO firm, Net Concepts, which I sold 14 months ago, and now I'm just on my own again, doing stuff that I like to do, and co-authored a book called The Art of SEO. Invented a technology platform called Gravity Stream, which is now part of Covario's suite of SEO technologies. It's now rebranded as Organic Search Optimizer, and that's about it.
Okay, awesome. We're going in alphabet. Normally I would do ladies first, but I decided we'd do alphabetical order this time. Sherry?
I'm Sherry. I'm an SEO, usability person, board of directors, Information Architecture Institute, so all my answers are going to have a very big usability spin, because I think it's important that ranking's not the only thing. You have to convert as well, so you got to think about searchers.
Okay. Jill.
Jill Whalen, the CEO of High Rankings. I've been doing SEO since '95, and you can sign up for my newsletter and everything else by those links.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, so let's get started. I think we have 20 or so myths here. And we now have 54 minutes or less to get through those. So let's get started with the basic, the large topic of PageRank. The myth being that PageRank equals rankings.
False. How's that for a short answer?
That was short enough.
Short and quick.
So what do you when you look at a page's PageRank, what does it mean to you? What do you use that
I don't look at
signal
PageRank.
for?
I don't look at, if somebody walks into my office and says the word PageRank to me, I squirt them with my Mondo squirt gun. You can have a PageRank of 0 and your site can make millions of dollars. You can have a PageRank of 7 and make absolutely nothing at all. So I don't look at PageRank.
PageRank coming out of the toolbar server is just mythology. It's on random number generators. So the true PageRank score is somewhere hidden behind in the Googleplex, and we're not going to have access to it. There's trust and authority and importance all kind of intermingled in there.
I'll take a little different. I mean, I don't look at it for ranking. I do think that paying attention to how toolbar PageRank degrades on your site is a good way to spot pages that Google thinks are poor quality. So if your homepage shows green and a page 1 click from there shows white, it's usually an indication that Google doesn't think that page is that great of a page. So we look at it like that to do work on the site to correct that. And when you get the site where everything degrades as you think it should, things tend to work a little better. But as far as it being the magic bullet, it's no longer like that. It was at one time. It was pretty cool, but not anymore.
Well, and the myth came about where people would think that the higher the page rank, the toolbar page rank that any page had, then that would mean their ranking would be higher. So the results would be perhaps ordered by page rank order. And if you look at any search result and look at the toolbar page rank, you'll see that's not the case at all.
Yeah, bear in mind that the page rank numbers you get are months out of date. So you launch a new page and it'll show page rank 0 because page isn't showing up out of the toolbar server.
Okay, next one. PageRank sculpting. The use of the no-follow, rel equals no-follow tag on links. The myth being that helps with your search rankings.
False.
Okay, so PageRank sculpting used to be this really cool thing, and conceptually it still is, but not using no-follow, right? So Google made a important change where they didn't give the remaining credit that, let's say you no-follow half of the links, and the remaining half should theoretically get all of the juice, which means you're passing double the page rank through. Awesome. Yeah, it used to work. Fantastic. And Google changed that. The concept of PageRank sculpting and flowing PageRank strategically throughout your site is still a very valid one, and you can use cookie-based detection or other means other than no-follows to do this.
Yeah, it's the concept now you need to understand regarding that is called evaporation, and that's basically, it was a big change. So on large sites, it was a tool, and it wasn't like oh my God, you can instantly be number one, but on large sites with a lot of content, it was at one time a quick way to better channel stuff, especially in situations where actually rebuilding the site properly wouldn't really work. But now, like Stefan said, you can tell Google not to pass juice to a page, but you don't get to keep. I always tell you it's kind of like going in and voting, right? You can go in the voting booth and choose not to cast votes for some of the people on the ballot, but you can't take those extra votes and add them to the person that you want to win, right? Can't do that anymore, so.
It's important to remember that the site architecture and how you channel your page rank is important, and it's just that the whole page rank sculpting through, just because you put a no-follow tag on a privacy policy page or something like that, it's probably not going to really do anything. But actually channeling page rank to important pages of your site is very important still.
Sherry, anything to add?
If you architect your site well in the first place, this whole concept of page rank sculpting is just BS. So just architect your site correctly in the first place. Don't link to something you don't want people to click on, and you should be good. Some obvious things are the add to cart pages. You should no-follow, but that's about it.
Overheard.
All right, here's a new one. Site speed impacts rankings. Google made their announcement, 6 months or so ago, about site speed being a factor now. Has anyone seen any examples of that?
As far as site speed making your site rank better?
Impacting rankings?
It's not dramatic, but it is important. And it's even if it's not even if they weren't like actually scoring it, like it impacts user behavior. And they clearly are looking at far more data from how people actually interact with your site. So it's bad to have a slow site, and you should fix it.
It really kills conversion. There are two excellent books on site speed and how to optimize that are both written by Steve Souders, the chief performance engineer at Google. He used to be the chief performance at Yahoo and got stolen away. Steve wrote high-performance websites and even faster websites. Both of them are published by O'Reilly. And one covers more than the other, like the server side, performance improvements and optimizations, and then the other one's more client side. You can make a big impact just by reordering your JavaScripts when they load. Like, does the CSS load first or the JavaScript? That can actually have a big impact as far as do they load all in serial? One has to finish loading before the next one can start loading, or can they load in parallel? So that has a big impact on your conversion. As far as the ranking signal, it is a signal, but it's not important. And it's also a matter of degree. If you're talking about 20 seconds going to 2-second load time, you're going to see an impact in your rankings. If you go from, let's say, 1.6 seconds to 1.4 seconds, you're not.
It's like pretty much any of these myths, there's some basis in fact. There's some reason why they came about and why they're myths. And it's in Google's best interest to tell you that the site speed will impact your rankings because they want faster sites. Now with Google Instant and the preview thingy that they have, they need your site to be fast. So for them to throw out this and say, yes, it's going to affect your rankings, that's a big reason why they're saying that. If your site is reasonably fast, you're probably fine. It's a great thing, as Stefan said, to make it faster, but that's probably not a priority for most of your sites.
Yeah, I would say it's not a priority, and I think Google's not defining site speed. I think there's, connectivity affects site speed. Download time can be file size and all that kind of stuff. So there's some of it that's technical, and some of the things are not even thinking about searchers. Believe it or not, sometimes I swear Google doesn't think about searchers. When people get what they want from a search engine, they perceive the download time as faster than it really is. And when people don't get what they expect, they perceive the download time as slower than it really is. So there's a difference between actual download time and perceived download time. And Jared Spool at User Interface Engineering found this way back in, I think, 2001. So I question Google's definition of site speed.
Here's another new one. Tweets and likes impact rankings, yay or nay?
Yay.
I think they probably do to a certain extent. I don't know how measurable it is. Has anybody been able to measure it? It would make sense to a certain extent. Again, if someone with authority is tweeting certain things, that they're going to give it some impact, just like PageRank, real PageRank. But it's a tricky one to know for sure or to measure.
This is one I would definitely want to build up my reputation on and say I want more tweets, I want more likes, just for future-proofing purposes. At this point, I think it's more of a corroboration type of signal, where if, just like toolbar usage, Google's watching toolbar users, right? So it's not necessarily that you're going to be able to hire a bunch of people in India to click on things to impact rankings, although there is some scuttlebutt that can work. But if you look for corroboration as Google, like, okay, there are all these different signals that say that this is an important page, and I'm getting further backup information that likes and tweets also say the same thing. That looks pretty legitimate.
And I would say it depends on the industry. There are plenty of sites that aren't in Facebook, aren't in Twitter, that get plenty of search engine traffic and plenty of conversions and don't need them. And there are some industries where the tweeting and the Facebook liking absolutely affect to a degree.
And we should mention that even though a tweet with a link, when it shows up on twitter.com, that link is no followed, we should mention that the search engines have access to the raw fire hose or whatever they call it without the no follow link, et cetera, et cetera. So,
plus you get a lot of traffic from a lot of these things. I mean, sometimes on Twitter, and can be the most traffic to an article and that kind of thing.
Yeah, human corroboration signals exactly what Stefan said. It's probably, and they're doing more and more of it, and they'll continue to go down that route. So they can crawl and analyze and determine what they think should rank from a purely machine algorithmic standpoint, and then they can take data from actual user behavior and use that to say, yeah, this is the right choice. So important stuff.
So it's not a bad thing to be an authority on Twitter or Facebook.
Not at all.
That's awesome.
All right, Flash and SEO. The myth being that Flash, or maybe it's not a myth, that it kills SEO and you can never use Flash.
It's an overgeneralization.
That is a myth.
That's a little broad.
It depends on how you
Overreaching.
use it. That's all. It depends on how you use it. So sometimes Flash is exactly what the user wants. They can complete their tasks more efficiently. You give it to them. There are ways to work around it, and they work just fine. But I wouldn't do an entirely Flash site where it's just one URL. That would probably not work well unless you have incredible link development, which most sites don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't use Flash for your primary navigation. I wouldn't use it to put all your product specs in. I just basically use it as a way to increase interactivity and demonstrate devices and things. If you're selling a new Android phone, have a Flash movie where you can interact with that and flip the keyboard open and actually press on the keys and have it show on the readout. That's pretty cool. That's a very good use of Flash. To put the product specs in there into the Flash movie, really stupid.
Yeah, don't ever rely on Flash to deliver your actual textual content. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Even, for many years now, Google has said that they can crawl and parse a Flash file, but there's never really any content of value in a Flash file, so it never ranks, right? So just keep your textual content separate and use Flash to enhance the user experience and do cool, pretty neat things.
Yeah, you're losing the semantic markup when you have these pieces of content in Flash, right? So this is an important piece of content. It's bold, or it's a headline, or it's a title, or whatever. You're losing a lot of that those semantic signals when you put that in Flash.
This myth really is for those people who think they've heard Flash is bad, and so they're afraid to make like a banner, that's pretty of their logo or whatever, or just a banner at the top. And I get that question all the time. Is if I make a picture at the top of my site in Flash, am I going to be banned by Google? Of course not. And that that's where the myth comes about, because there's some reasons, like these guys have said, why it's bad, but you don't have to be afraid of Flash. It's not that they see, oh no, this is Flash, this site's out of here. That doesn't happen.
Okay, what about the header tags? H1, H2, H3, do you absolutely have to use those?
I say definitely no, you don't have to use them. Keywords in your headers, in headers or headlines is always good, and keywords throughout the page, but whether it's in a H tag or not doesn't seem to really make a difference.
These are all great things to test on your own and see, does this actually work, right? You have a hypothesis, H1 tags have an impact or they don't have an impact. What you want to do is have a scientific sort of test. Don't just add H1 tags across your site and say, oh, look, this had an impact. Well, you didn't have headlines at all. So you were missing the keyword prominence. When you incorporate too many things into your test, you don't know which thing actually worked. Whereas if you already had headlines, but they were using font tags, and you switch to H1 tags and you see that really is no impact on your rankings, that's a pretty valid test.
I'm a big fan of proper semantic structures, so I do use them, and I use them in the proper order. And in terms of navigation, and you're doing things like sections where headings are actually links, I've seen enough to make me feel that it's an important thing. So I'm a fan. Go ahead.
And I've actually I've been testing since 1995, and I have so far through all these years haven't seen any difference whether it's an H1, H2, H3. It's more where the page is, and it's a signal too. And H1 is the signal to the search engines as well as humans.
Okay, Jill, I think you started this myth, didn't you?
Yes, you did.
Well, density is not the number of words. 250 was the number of words on a page, yes, which I started that.
You just made that up, right?
I just made up that number years ago because it was a good amount of words to put on a page where you could get a few keyword phrases in there and keep your marketing message. And then now for the past 10 years, that's what you hear written down is 250 words on a page. The search engines don't care how long your page is. It can be 5 words. It can be 3,000 words or more or whatever. There's no specific number. And same with keyword density. There's no 7%, 6.99852%. You have to just use your judgment and use however many words on the page and however many times your keywords make sense to do so without it sounding stupid.
But it is important that your pages are focused, because when people click on a search result, they typed keywords and they expect to see the keywords in the search listing, and they expect to see it on the page. And if they don't see the scent, it's called information scent, SCENT. If they don't see that scent continued and get stronger, they tend to abandon your website. So even so, there's something Jared Spool at User Interface Engineering coined. It's called the 5-second usability test, and that's where you show a user or a group of users a web page for 5 seconds and ask them to write down everything they remember about that page. And if they don't put your most important keywords to them when they land from a search engine results page on your own site, they're very unlikely to stay if they don't see their keywords. So to a degree, your pages need to be keyword focused, just not, like Jill said, the 5%.
Yeah, we're looking for, I think, when you're measuring keyword density, the edge cases where there is like no keyword density, you forgot to use the words in the page, or you've keyword stuffed and made it look like spam. It's the only value for monitoring it.
It's more important. I mean, there's a couple of things. So obviously, Google's interpretation of what would be shallow content, and I look more at ratio of text to links on the page, right? Pages with not a lot of text and a whole lot of links tend to not do well, obviously. But more importantly than density of the word that you want to rank for is what other words are on that page that relate to that. So I can show you pages that have extremely high keyword densities, but they also have many semantically related words on the page that you would expect to find on, whereas the keyword stuffing kind of density, the machine-generated stuff, tends not to do that. So if you only use the phrase you want to rank for, if you're trying to rank for cheap tickets, and all you say is cheap tickets on the page, and you say that a lot, and you don't have words like affordable and airfare and, the other kinds of stuff, then that can be a problem, but the overall percentage is not.
Yeah, even worse is if you've got all sorts of links pointing to that page with cheap tickets and the anchor text and nothing else that's semantically related.
Bad.
Dumb.
Okay, on the technical side, XML sitemaps, do they help rankings, or is that a myth?
No. Where do you get the signal that says this is an important page versus a non-important page? Certainly not from the XML sitemap data. I mean, the priority field is affecting the spidering activity, but certainly not importance, authority, or trust for that page. So you should have a spiderable site without an XML sitemap. Google should be able to crawl through all the pages, and there should be enough link authority flowing from page to page that you're not getting to what is a near orphan page.
It's a big myth, and I'd even go as far as saying that in a lot of cases XML sitemaps hurt your rankings purely for what Stefan's talking about. Clients often don't get the concept that how content on your site does or does not rank is based on connectivity. And sitemaps do not create structure and connectivity. It's just a big list of all your pages. So it's a great way to feed them a bunch of URLs to come fetch, but when they come fetch them, how they potentially rank those is based on how all those URLs are connected to each other within the structure. So a lot of times companies think the sitemap fixes everything, and it just basically helps Google crawl more crap.
It actually obscures the symptoms, right? It makes it harder for you to diagnose what the true issue is. You're like trying to fix your cold by taking some cold medicine. That's not going to do it.
Build the site first and get it indexed properly, and then add sitemaps last.
Could somebody tweet Greg's XML sitemaps, make Google crawl more crap so I can favorite it or something? That was brilliant.
I'm sure it'll happen.
Please, thank you.
I think the myth or the question should be whether XML sitemaps help indexing or not, and even that I think is questionable. Although I know Vanessa Fox yesterday said that when with one site they put just all the new URLs in one sitemap, and that really helped them to get crawled. But again, if they're buried deeply on the page or they're crap, it's so good. They're indexed, big deal. Are they getting
crawling and ranking is different, And we're in an era now where high volume, low quality is not a good thing. It's a bad thing for your site as a whole. It's part of the whole, farmer thing. And we talked about this yesterday. Is you have 500,000 pages and only 2,000 of them actually generate traffic. That's an overall bad signal, and it's a waste of Google's time. And if you're doing stuff with sitemaps that's contributing to that problem, you're shooting yourself in the foot, I think. So.
Go ahead.
You good with that? On a related note, I don't do much with video. Video XML sitemaps, do you guys have much experience with that? And do those help? I have heard they do.
Yes.
They
great.
do.
Yes, very much so.
That's a different thing. Yeah, that's cool.
Video sitemaps, essential.
Because that's content Google takes and serves that kind of stuff kind of independent of your site, right? So stuff that gets pulled into Universal it's a little different than, that whole connectivity thing. So.
All right, let's talk about links, inbound links, and where they come from. The idea, myth, whatever you want to call it, being that links from certain top-level domains are better than other links. True or false?
I strongly believe they're not better. I think people believe they are because they tend to have more authority. EDU ones should technically have more authority, but if you ever look, they're the ones right now that are the most spammed as well, because any college kid can have access to their server and put up a stupid page and put links to Overstock or whatever they want to put on it.
Easy. Where's Paul?
So I just don't. I don't believe that they actually give them a special weighting.
It's a byproduct, right? So there's not an algorithmic bump that says this link has more value because it ends in .edu. But in an authoritative algorithm where there's sites at the top of the food chain that are defined as being trusted, EDUs tend to be, in general, much higher connected up that food chain. So they tend to have better quality authority as a whole, but not because of what you could change that to .me or whatever. If the sites were the same where they are on the web map, those links would still be valuable.
Yeah, it's a factor of it being a more pristine link neighborhood in general on a .edu versus a .info or .biz. So I actually asked Matt Cutts this question on an interview posted a couple years ago on my blog, and he said it's not a signal. A .edu doesn't get any special credit. Now, that's not to say that I would always trust what the Google engineers say is a signal or not a signal. Test it for yourself, but I definitely concur with Matt on this one.
All right, topic that's been in the news lately about buying links. It automatically gets you banned. I suppose the answer is only if the New York Times writes about it.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. It totally doesn't. I mean, do any search for any halfway competitive product, and you're still going to see most of the sites ranking because they're buying links.
But yet you can buy links for a competitor and tank them, especially if they don't have a strong link authority already.
More so now than ever. So the thing with you got to separate banning from filtering. So we're moving from an era when there was more manual. We've looked at you, you're cheating, and we're going to ban you, to a point now where Google has. I don't remember Matt talking about his laser guided scalpels, right? What we see now is that they have a much more automated filtering mechanism that will automatically remove pages from search results without banning the whole entire site when abnormal anchor text stuff happens. So it's not really so much about being paid, it's about being stupid. It doesn't matter whether you paid for them or not. So if you all of a sudden go out and your number one anchor text in your backlink portfolio is blue fuzzy widgets and you have thousands of links from a handful of domains because you're doing site-wide, it doesn't really matter whether you paid for those or not. Google will automatically filter that and not show that page. And once you reduce and change those links, the page will come back. So it's not really, I don't consider it a penalty so much as tripping a filter.
Yeah, think of it like you're creating a rap sheet for yourself, and all the on-page dodgy things you're doing and all the off-page stuff can add up to getting a penalty or what feels like a penalty or banning. If you're doing dodgy on-page stuff, it's not like a competitor is going to hack your site and put keyword stuffing into the meta tags, right? So that's all you. And if you're also doing stuff that's dodgy off-page, it's hard to make the argument to Google, well, I'm a victim of my competitor. Yeah, right.
Well, remember, Google doesn't know if money's changed hands or not. So, yeah, if you're doing some kind of paid link network that leaves some sort of footprint in the code, that's stupid, and they'll probably find that. But if you just make a deal with somebody to put a link on their site and it's done in a way that doesn't look like a paid link, the chances of them catching that, they probably won't. I mean, it depends on the scale that you're doing it on, but they don't somehow magically know where money changes hands either.
Okay, you guys, we kind of hit on this a little bit just in the conversation right there. Competitors can't harm you. Is that true or false?
They can torch you.
No comment.
He can torch you.
It's the idea that it can't happen is a myth, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Oh, they can. Absolutely. Your competitors, I see it all the time. It's why I'm not a big fan of social media. They can write fake reviews, which they do. They can post BS tweets, which they do. They can do all kinds of things. So, yes, they can.
But that stuff shouldn't affect rankings. Obviously, these guys have seen it happen, and that's a big flaw in Google's algorithm if they allow that to happen, because anyone can do that.
Oh, Bing lets it happen.
The upside now of a more automated filtering world, as opposed to how it was used to done, is that it would be far more expensive. So as an example, in theory, I could go out and buy 50,000 site-wide links for one keyword term and point it to a competitor's page, and I could probably make that page no longer rank on page one. But when Google filters a page like that, they will often show a second page from the site, kind of like Plan B. So if you think of it, the idea that you only get in trouble for that one word you're going for now, as opposed to your whole site getting slapped. So the cost involved to tank a competitor in a way that would be meaningful in terms of impacting their business would be pretty expensive, because you would have to go out and engage in that kind of activity for a lot of individual phrases. So a site that gets ranks for all kinds of stuff, yeah, you might make one of their terms not rank that well, but if you add up the dollars you'd have to spend to do it on any kind of scale, it's probably not something that's going to happen.
And don't you run the risk of actually helping them?
In Bing. Yeah, see? I mean, that's the other thing too, right? When you go out, if you're engaging in competitive sabotage, which I don't think you should do, but that's the thing. Sometimes you make them more money because Bing loves that stuff. Google doesn't.
That's great. I actually know somebody who's a black hat and regularly uses this tactic. I certainly don't condone it, but he swears by it. Works like a charm. It's pretty evil, but he makes a living.
Be nice to people.
Okay, what about, as long as we're on the subject of links, to what degree does linking out help your SEO? Is it good for you to link out to other sites in your space? Does that help with your SEO?
If you're not linking to anybody, that looks abnormal.
Yep.
You're hoarding all your link juice.
It's all about modeling, right? So if you think of the idea, and if you read the stuff about Farmer and all that, and the idea of taking, asking humans what they like, and then looking at what they said was bad, and looking at footprints and creating a model, right? And that's how the backlink filtering and all that does. There's a certain footprint and common things that quote unquote good trusted sites have that you want to try to emulate, and you will never find a good authoritative site that does not link out, right? But they will have a good authoritative site will have way more links coming in than going out. But I always look at it like that's your opportunity to kind of tell Google what community you want to be a part of. So I'm definitely anti-juice hoarding and all that kind of stuff. Link out to stuff that makes sense, and link out to sites that are probably a little higher up the food chain than you are.
But there's the old myth that people used, especially years ago, they would think if they linked to Google that Google would like them better, and I still see that sometimes on pages. That's silly.
I miss those days.
I think this originated from Kleinberg, Hubs and Authorities, so I think that's where that came from.
Anybody who says, yeah, link to Google and that helps your rankings, you should immediately fire.
Okay, industry item, and I was just looking at a website 3-4 days ago, endorsed. Google loves us, recommends us or something. I can't remember the exact wording.
So evil and
So stupid.
It's a dirty trick where you'd see some really dodgy firms send out spam email campaigns, and they'd say they're endorsed by Google, and then they put a link, and it actually led to a Google website optimizer page. They say, we are Google authorized or Google endorsed optimizers, as if they're search engine optimizers, but they were on the website optimizer product list. And people who didn't know any better would think that they were endorsed as SEOs by Google. Yeah, I turned them in, and
I've
they
even
got
seen
removed.
stuff where sites are being a little aggressive with stuff, and then they have like a little badge on their site where they're basically bragging, like they made a graphic saying how we rank #1 for all these terms in Google. It's like, what are you, stupid?
Yes,
like,
they are.
you don't ever want to make claims or anything that publicly embarrasses Google or makes them look silly or connects you to them. They don't like that kind of stuff, and they will make you go away.
Yeah, and you sometimes see people who are perhaps AdWords certified, and so they try to pretend that has something to do with organic SEO. And you'd be surprised how many regular people outside the industry don't know there's a difference between AdWords and SEO.
And there's analytics certified too, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yep.
But the biggest one is being Google Website Optimizer certified, because it's got that word optimizer in there, even though it's multivariate testing. A lot of people who don't understand what that is will think that means SEO.
Okay, so as long as we're on that subject, the Q&A site Quora, you guys are familiar with? I saw this about 2 months or so ago. There was a question from somebody in Europe, I think it was, asking for recommendations for SEO consultants in a specific country, and I don't remember which one. And a Google engineer replied with 3 recommended SEOs in that certified country. So there, Google was endorsing.
Was he really he or she, a real engineer?
Yeah, he's a Twitter
they
user.
will-
It's not. It wasn't Matt. It was somebody else. But
They beat to a different drum over in Europe, right? But it's
Well,
they
I
do
know.
things a little differently.
They may no longer be employed by Google.
I think individual Googlers might endorse somebody privately because they've worked with them before.
Matt Cutts endorses me, but
There you go. There you go. But as a company, I don't think they would endorse.
And we endorse Matt.
Yeah, we
Well,
endorse
you know
Matt.
what? Google just, I guess, invested in HubSpot, which is like an SEO company, which I was really shocked about, and nobody really talked about that. I mean, there's a huge conflict of interest there, I think. HubSpot is just an SEO tool and SEO services company.
I think HubSpot would say that they're more than just SEO. I mean, it's an entire conversion lead gen
Yeah, they're
website
more than it,
platform.
but
it's
it's-
more than just SEO.
That's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I get the point.
Google may end up doing what they did with Performix and just carve off the piece that is kind of a direct disconnect to
Cut it loose.
what. Yeah.
Okay, we're doing good on time, right? Yes, we are. Cool. Okay, what about searcher activity? Your site is on page 1 or page 2 or page 3, and a lot of searchers click on it. Does that improve your rankings?
In personalized search, yes, absolutely.
I think for sites that are getting a lot of real searches, a lot of real clicks, there's probably, they probably are looking at that to some extent. I mean, it's not something you could game, though, I would, not think, because of course, the different IPs and everything else, but I think they're probably taking that somewhat into account. It would be a small factor.
Yeah, they've been tracking the front side clicks since the dawn of search engines, and the idea that they don't look at how you engage with that SERP to determine how it ranks is just silly. I mean, if people are hitting a link and hitting the back button and coming back and hitting another link, that's a great signal that that site probably wasn't a good choice. The downside of that, though, from a and I really have no idea how they factor this in, but the amount of time somebody will spend on your site looking for the information that they want is directly related to where on that page they clicked on you, right? So if you are number one, your bounce rate drops automatically because people have the idea that if I can't find it, it's my fault because Google said this is the best thing, right? Whereas when you're farther down, they feel like they're taking a chance, and so they'll hit the site, and if they can't find what you want right away, they leave. But yeah, you definitely have to pay attention to that stuff.
Think of it this way. If you're Google, wouldn't it be a good test to artificially, just momentarily, promote a site from, let's say, number 5 to number 2, take into account the fact that the person should spend more time on that and should find what they want, or just basically as a really good test to see what happens. Does this deserve to be at number 2, or does it deserve to be even lower than where it currently is at number 5?
Call it that audition period, right? You ever get a page that you get something climb up, and when it gets to that kind of 11 through 15 range, and you'll see this phenomenon where the page will start bouncing onto page 1 in that 7 to 9 range, and it'll be there for a while, and then it falls back, and then it goes back. That to me is like when Google's comparing how people interact with that compared to what was there before. It's almost like you're auditioning for a spot on the first page. And when we start seeing that happen, we really focus on keeping bounce rates low and engaging the user once they land it, so they go and do other stuff on the site, and you just seem to find stability when you focus on that stuff.
Well, bounce rate's a myth in SEO because people think, a high bounce rate is really, really bad. Well, it depends on the query type. There's multiple query types. One of them is an informational query that's called a quick fact. And the idea behind a quick fact is to get people the information they want as quickly as possible. So a high bounce rate on a quick fact page is actually a good sign.
Yeah,
so it depends on the query type, and it depends on the query words if they've been classified as informational keyword phrases.
The type of, and the space you're working in, because I years ago used to do a lot of work in the data recovery space, and everybody in that space has dramatically high bounce rates in single view because people are borrowing their coworker's computer, hitting the site, and calling the phone number, right? They're not really searching. They need somebody to say, pick up the phone. And so I'm sure they understand that because they can see that across the whole space, so it's not like having a high number like that automatically hurts you. It's probably in relationship to the other sites that you're competing with.
Yeah. Again, this is a corroboration signal, just like likes.
All right. Did we just cover that?
Same thing, yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. Is this the very last one? Are we at the end already? How exciting. Ooh. Okay, so the goal of SEO is to rank well?
Oh, definitely no, because you don't even know where you rank anymore. There's no such thing as a ranking. Everybody sees different set of search results for the most part.
That's a
depending
myth.
on.
Yeah, that's.
Well, there's a lot of factors though. The personalized search and geo-targeting, especially with geo-targeting. And so you can't, you never know. Even before all that stuff, you still didn't know. If you ran ranking reports and you didn't like the way they came out, you could run it again in a half hour and you'd see different results in there as well. So that's just not your best measure of success.
The flip side of that is rankings are obviously important because if you're not where people can see you, you're not going to get the traffic. But the bigger picture is that organic search marketing is that it's about conversion and engagement and getting them to do what you want to do, and getting ranked is part of that process, but obviously you don't make money these days just for being ranked. So
Yeah, you got to think about the whole funnel. Top of the funnel you have crawling, then next you have indexing, then you have ranking, and then you have click-throughs from the search results, then you end up with the conversions, hopefully. So every step of the process you need to be optimizing.
Yeah, but it's also true that I've seen sites that don't rank well at all, but the sites that link to them rank very well, and that's how they get their traffic. So it depends, but I don't think the goal is ranking. I think the goal is conversion.
Well, and the problem with thinking of rankings as the goal is that you could be ranking for keywords nobody's searching on, and that's how a lot of crappy SEO companies do their work. They're like, look, see, you're number one on this keyword phrase, but
nobody
like,
searches for
right,
it.
Right, you're like, well, how come I'm not getting any business or traffic or anything? And so by using that as your measure, you could be screwing yourself. And you might be perfectly happy. Oh, look, I got all these rankings, and it's just silly.
The goal of SEO is making money.
Yeah,
Yes.
turn and run if you
Yeah.
find a company that says they're going to guarantee X number of number one rankings for you. That's a bad situation.
Run.
Okay, so that is the end of this, and we're at, perfect. Wow, I run a nice session sometimes, don't I?
You are good.
All right.
It's all math.
No. Trust me. Okay. Uh-oh, we don't have the Chrome thing brought up. Michelle. Help. There we go. No. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to say, oh, there it is.
People said I said it. I didn't say it. You said it.
Hate when
Oh, fun.
Yeah, whoever said that Greg Bozer said on Twitter that he's endorsed by Matt, yeah, that was me. Come on, get it right, folks.
There it is. All right, in an hour or two, I'll get the questions up. There we go. Okay, so, awesome. We do have questions, and either the Wi-Fi's down or nobody's used Twitter. That's fine. Is it? Okay, so we do have some questions, and we have 11 minutes to do it. So let's get started. Okay. Does the position of keywords in the title tag affect ranking?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course, yes.
Even usability expert Jacob Nielsen says to begin your title tags with your most important keywords, because when people read, in the U.S. at least, they read from left to right, and so a lot of people won't read the tail end of the title tag, so sometimes it won't even get read. So it's not only good for search engine optimization, it's good for usability as well.
But you do have to balance it, because remember, your title tag is the clickable link in the search engine. So, if it doesn't make sense just to put a keyword at the beginning, a lot of times you do want your brand to be at the beginning of it, and don't be scared to do that because you think it's going to kill your rankings.
Make it human readable, not like a keyword list.
Next one, does all the conversation around Flash also apply to Ajax?
Ajax is good for cleaning your toilet. It's not good for SEO.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
They're different technologies, so...
but the general idea, it's the same kind of thing. You can do, I love Ajax. You can do a great, amazing user experience things. It speeds up, not having to reload the page. There's a lot of cool things you can do on a site and utilize Ajax. Doing an Ajax site that's, one single hashbang kind of thing and that can't get crawled and there's no extra pages, and that's just not very bright. If organic search traffic is something that you desire. So
You can use Ajax for cool interactive elements on the page, but if you view source and the important content is not there in the HTML, you're kind of screwed.
Yep.
Okay, videos hosted off-site. Is it better to host videos off-site than on-site?
I'd put them on YouTube and
I
then
hate
embed them.
that.
I don't think it matters if they're...
Obviously, it's pretty obvious that they like their own videos more than they like videos on your site. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but YouTube tends to get favored. So from an engagement standpoint, if you have the wherewithal to host and promote your own videos, and you can actually get them to show up in universal kind of results, it's better because you control the page they land on, and there's engagement opportunities. It's much easier to convert a video view to some kind of conversion if it's on your site than it is getting somebody to come from YouTube. But as far as getting it to rank,
Yeah.
you're going to do better on
Yeah.
YouTube. So.
And YouTube is a social network where you can take advantage of the viral potential of that network, the favoriting, the friends and subscribers and video replies and all that sort of great stuff. You can't do that on your own site with your own hosting situation.
Well, regardless of where they're hosted, you can still embed them on your page and put content around it and everything else to help that page rank in the engines. I don't think it really matters where it's hosted. If your server, why muck up your server with that much megabytes or gigabytes these days?
I tend to host on my own server because it's architecture and it's communicating. These are all on this site. This is all on this domain. But I will also put things on YouTube as part of social, just the social networking aspect of it. But then I might link to the full video on a site, and I might do some teaser ones that are unique to YouTube that can be embedded. So it's a combination, I think, that works really, really well.
I'd also, in addition to putting the videos on YouTube, I'd put them on other social video sharing sites as well, and use TubeMogul or something like that to push those out simultaneously, so you're not having to go to each one by hand. That's hard work.
Okay, so let me ask a question that if all four of you want to answer. It's related to the farmer stuff, the panda stuff that's been going on lately. And for years, Google has been talking about page-based signals being the dominant factor in rankings. It's page versus page versus page. But if you read their comments that they've been giving in the various interviews and what have you about this farmer update, they're now starting to talk about site-wide signals more often. So I would like opinions on that, site-wide versus page-level factors.
If there's one takeaway from this conference and anything right now is that the days of things being based on a page-by-page metric are pretty much gone. So a huge chunk of what Google's doing is all about assessing the quality of your site, not an individual page. And that's why things that used to not matter, like having high volumes of quote-unquote shallow content that doesn't get shown up in search, it was not necessarily a bad thing. You throw it all out there. If it got you traffic, it got you traffic. If it doesn't, now that stuff is an overall signal. And it makes sense, right? If I got to weed through a mountain of crap to get the good piece of content, and you make me do that consistently every time I come back to your site, you're not helping me be efficient. You're not helping me find good stuff to show people. So why, of course, my opinion of you would drop somewhat, I think. Makes sense.
And I think we've seen this for a long time with the whole authority thing. Certain domains have been given certain authority, and so that makes a big difference. But also it does seem that sometimes Google knows your site should be ranking for a certain keyword phrase, and so you might have a page in your site that's ranking for it, and then if something happens to that page for some reason, I've seen it where they'll just choose another page from the site and show that instead. If somehow that page just got a 404, or you buried it inadvertently or something. So there is definitely something where they're like, this site definitely should be ranking for this query, and if you screw it up on them, they'll find a way to make it happen anyway.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, is sometimes I think Google's a little late coming on to things because information architecture and navigation design has always been important for SEO since the mid-90s. Social media has been around for years. It's in a different form. Years ago it used to be news groups and all that kind of stuff. So information architecture and navigation design always has mattered. Google's just giving it more attention now than they've given it before, and I think, quite honestly, they've always been giving it attention.
I've been saying for years how you're developing a rap sheet for yourself, and even if things that seem to work short term could eventually come back to bite you, just like doing dodgy stuff on Wikipedia will eventually get you caught, maybe even years later, like that Wikiscanner tool that found anonymous edits that the companies were going in and from their own IP blocks, idiots, and editing their own pages against the Wikipedia conflict of interest guidelines. That sort of stuff you might get away with for a while, but it's going to eventually sully your domain and your brand, and that's going to come back to bite you. So that's all site-wide.
Okay, Bart suggests a myth that I don't know why we didn't even include this. AdWords influence organic rankings.
No, I think
the other way
not.
around.
I mean, I think
Negatively.
People think it's either one way or the other. But if they did start doing that, then Google would really open themselves up to getting themselves in trouble.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they don't.
And you'll find a Google sales rep who will say that that's true. So it's just an untrained Google sales rep.
Although if you spend a lot of money,
They will take you to dinner.
To
JCPenney.
get problems looked at.
And then they'll certify you. This one is slightly technical. Matt Cutts mentioned in a video that they shave off a percentage of link equity in 301s. He also mentioned separately that they shave off a percentage of equity for internal/external links as well. Is this your experience?
Absolutely. And even to the point where, and we kind of talked about this yesterday in the technical session, and a lot of people are, the question with 301s often comes up as kind of this black or white. Do they pass equity? Do they not? And, I've had a lot of experience with redirection over the years and have
Conditional.
done a lot of testing in that area. And I can tell you that there really seems to, Google has a much better ability to assess how much equity to pass through a redirect based on, once again, the footprint or the model of the kind of redirect it is. So not all 301s are treated equal. And so if you think about it, it makes sense. If something like a bit.ly URL, for example, it's a URL that they find one time, it's unique, they have no historical record of any content being on that URL, and the first time they find it, it's a bounce, right? And so it would make sense to maybe not pass as much equity through that kind of 301 versus a piece of content that they've had indexed for 10 years that now gets relocated and the new content, it's the same piece of content. I mean, they can tell that, right? So it's not a either or thing. So it definitely gets devalued. And what I find is that if you're using 301s for more canonical kind of stuff, the canonicals works better now. So they'd rather you use that. So.
It's in Google's best interest for you to believe that they do shave some off, because 301s can be used for shady purposes, and they have been being used for shady purposes for years and years and years. So for them to say that, it's a smart thing for them to say, and I think what Greg said sort of makes sense. I would imagine if you're using them for the purpose that they're intended for in a way that makes sense, redirecting it's very similar content as it should be, then it's not something you really need to worry about. But if you're trying to do tricky stuff, then perhaps that's where you could get in trouble.
Yeah, tricky stuff would include something like a conditional redirect where you detect, Googlebot's coming. Let's get them door number 1 instead of door number 2. So that'll get you in big trouble.
Yeah, a good example is 301-based affiliate programs. For a long time, that worked really well. So basically, Google hits the page on all with the parameters, and then you say, hey, you're Google, and you set, if it's a user, you set the cookie, you 301 them, and you use the 301s to kind of funnel all the juice from all those affiliate links, and that doesn't seem to really work anymore like it used to. So.
And there's not always a one-to-one match, even if it is completely on the up and up, because if you redesign a site and your navigation scheme changes, your page interlinking changes, the content might be the same, or that the content's changed and maybe the navigation really hasn't changed much. It's not that it's bad content anymore, it's different. So it makes sense for them to verify that also and shave stuff off, because it might not be better and it might not be the same.
Okay. Folks, I think we're out of time. If you didn't get your question answered just now, you might have a few minutes to chat with the folks on the panel. There's also an Ask the SEOs panel coming up later in the afternoon, which will be another opportunity. Please rate the session at that URL there, and let's give a warm round of applause to our 4 panelists. Thanks, guys.